Good afternoon, alienated parents, grandparents, children, friends, family worldwide, anyone who knows what parent alienation is. I'm sure we all need help, and those who don't know what parent alienation is, believe me, you're going to need help. So I'm grateful to have everyone here today on Tuesday, September 19th. Yes, September 19th, 2023. And it's actually a gorgeous day out there, a little breezy morning, but the chill gets us moving. Anyways, I'd like to invite a special guest today who has been here for part one. We now have her back for part two, Dr. Lynn Steinberg PhD from Los Angeles, California. um, Dr. Steinberg consults with families, groups, couples, and individuals. She specializes in working with alienated children in the US, and I'm sure you do it in Canada too, in the UK as well, Dr. Lynn. We'll ask you that in a moment. Also, provides a 4-day therapeutic intervention program called One Family at a Time, which has a high success rate, which is fabulous. Congratulations on that, because our kids need it. And Dr. Steinberg provides expert testimonies on parental alienation in the courts. Welcome, Dr. Steinberg, back to Let's Talk on Parent Alienation and Family Domestic Abuse.
Thank you,
I'm going to
Mary.
give you the floor.
Back.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Dr. Steinberg, you have some pressing legislative news for us to share, and I would love to have our viewers listen in on this as well. So you go right ahead. Tell us what's happening out there in California.
Well, have you had anyone on the show to talk about Cadence Law?
Yes. Well, Dr. Petra Dieter, we've been, we had Monique, what's her name? I forgot her name, but yeah, there was a few people.
Mm-hmm. So the law in California, which is called Peaky's Law, was an extract of Cadence Law. And I know that you know that Cadence Law is a federal law, and it gave Violence Against Women Act a lot of money, like $80 million. And it was signed by President Biden. And this was last year in March. And it was distributed to the states with the statements that the states would be able to make millions of dollars if they ratified this bill, the Cadence Law. And just briefly, Cadence Law says that a woman can say that she has been a victim of domestic violence and not have to prove it. And that all reunification therapy would not be allowed to be ordered by the judges, which of course removes the discretionary power of the judges. That a child cannot be reunited with a parent that they don't want to be with, these poor brainwashed children. And that if a child appears to be bonded with one of the parents, they can't be removed from that parent. And, there's other things as well, like they try to write themselves into being expert witnesses without having the background to be an expert witness, which is the education, the training, the experience, the knowledge of a particular subject. And the way they wrote it was that if a person has particular knowledge about this case, they can be an expert, which is just outrageous, because that means that all these people who back this law can come in and be an expert witness and, peddle their misinformation and disinformation. So this Cadence Law was named after a little girl who was murdered by her father. And recently, have you had the person from the Anti-Alienation Project on your show yet, Mary? Her
No,
name
I
is,
haven't.
oh, you really ought to have her. Her name's Madison. And she interviewed Caden's mom recently. And Caden's mom said that she is just appalled at what this law has become, and that allowing them to use her name, Caden's name, never came with the permission to exploit children who were alienated from their parents and to exploit alienated parents. And if you look on YouTube under the Anti-Alienation Project, you'll be able to see all the videos that Madison has made. Really brilliant videos. And so when the law came to California, they changed the name of the law to Peaky's Law. And Peaky was a little boy, 5 years old, and the judge ruled that he was, his father would be allowed to see him, and did not order monitored visits. He just said that his dad could have visitation. So when the little boy was picked up by his father took him, and I think he took him to Disneyland. Are you there? Or do we have a glitch? Are you there, Mary? I'll wait for you to get back on here. There you are. Can you hear me?
Sorry about that. We got cut off. Yes, I can hear you. The connection, something just, it happens quite often here. Sorry, we're out in the woods.
I remember where I was.
My apologies.
So anyway, he took the little boy to Disneyland, and then right after that, he murdered him by smothering him. And then he propped his body against a tree, and it took a while for the police to find him. So it's a really, really tragic story. But what has happened is that these groups, and I call them hate groups because they do peddle hate, have used this situation to get these really Machiavellian laws passed in all the different states. It's passed in several states, like recently Colorado, Pennsylvania, and a few other states.
That's great.
Yeah. And it got by without any opposition, but we have been fighting it in California. And last year we managed to kill the bill. And then this year we've started fighting. They just put the bill forward again. And we've been fighting as much as we can, as humanly much as we can, to bring to the attention of the legislators that this bill has nothing to do with poor little Peaky getting murdered. This bill, they say that this bill will protect children from being murdered by a parent. This is absolutely not true. What would have helped is if there had been, someone like me as an expert in the hearing saying, this man has been violent in the past. He shouldn't be going on anything but monitored visits within CPS building. And, we'll see how it goes. and there should have been a risk assessment and a psychological report done. None of that was done. Peaky was just handed over to his dad per the court order, and he was murdered. So what these groups have done, and the main group is Violence Against Women Act, who got all the money, is that they've had Peaky's mom come and talk. So she starts talking. You're only supposed to have 2 minutes to talk, but every single hearing, and she's been in every single hearing, they give her as much time as they want, or she wants. And this last time, she actually brought Peaky's ashes. And so, there's a lot of sensationalism. And so the legislators, I don't know if they don't read the bill at all, or but they're definitely so taken about this really tragic story that unanimously they vote against reunification therapy. They vote for judges having inordinate amounts of training, given, of course, by these groups. They just put the bill through, I'm sure, without reading it. And we have tried to educate them and say, look, this bill has nothing to do with keeping children safe. If we want to write a bill about keeping children safe, let's write into it that, parents who have been accused of domestic violence go through a risk assessment. I mean, police do. I used to do risk assessments for the police with people that they, had some questions about. So other organizations do it. So why can't the family courts do it?
That's right.
Yeah. And the other points in the bill are just to eliminate people like me who give expert testimony and who do reunification therapy, unfortunately. And so right now, this bill has passed, and it's going to be going to the governor's office. And we are going to try to fight it at the governor's office. But I will tell you that Governor Newsom here in California got nominated for being very concerned about children's rights. But it's very interesting timing, because right when he's going to sign this bill, that's when he's going to get the award. So these people are very organized. They have a lot of money, and as you yourself have experienced, they will attack whoever tries to make a difference, whoever tries to change the fact that parents get alienated from their children, that children get brainwashed, that they're abused by that brainwashing and not seeing the other parent. And those situations need to be remedied with therapists who have been trained in working with parental alienation issues, because they're different to regular family therapy issues. So,
Exactly.
so it's been extremely discouraging. It's been discouraging also because even my colleagues haven't managed to work together. They haven't managed to support one another. They haven't managed to pull together to fight this bill. And the other side, I call them the haters, have been extremely organized. They will attack one of us, as you've experienced, until they get rid of that person one way or another. And people are afraid to speak up for that person, unfortunately. So this problem has become, as one of my colleagues says, toxic. It's become extremely toxic. And I read back to the 80s, and of course, we know what happened to Dr. Gardner just because he wrote some theory about parental alienation. And then he had his counterpart in England. His name was Ludwig Lowenstein. And he was very prolific. He wrote a lot. And he wrote about being attacked by the public. And he was likened to Dr. Gardner in a very negative way. And he died, both of them died, having been discredited in every possible way. So that's just a synopsis of what's going on here.
That's just so insane that half the world sees it one way and the other half sees it the other way, and the ones that are living the death of a living child is the only one that understands what we are going through, and as part of domestic violence as well. I mean, these children are used because that's a control tactic for the alienator to use our kids in situations like that. So does that mean Peaky's Law is allowing abuse to really happen if it's not happening?
Well, the people who have gotten Peaky's Law through, they say that if we manage to get a court order saying that this child needs to be placed with his dad or his mom on a temporary basis, that would be the rejected parent. And, then the other parent would work toward understanding the dynamics and sharing custody of the child as it should have been right in the beginning without bad-mouthing the other parent. What these groups say is that the children have been taken from the good parent and placed with the abuser. Now, if they were interested in looking at the truth or telling the truth in any way, what they would find out is that before children are court ordered to go with other parents, the rejected parent has been vetted by the police, by CPS, by the judge, by therapists, and everybody has found that this parent has not been abusive and that there have been a lot of lies told by the other parent and, as you say, weaponized the children to repeat the lies. And interestingly enough, the American Bar Association wrote a book or did a study that was funded by the American Bar Association. And the authors wrote the book called Children Held Hostage. And they found that 86% of these children will simply get up in court and lie because they want to please the parent that they're living with, which is the alienating parent. So these groups don't say that this parent who now has custody of the children is an innocent parent and did not abuse their children. In fact, the other parent has been abusing their children by turning them against the rejected parent. They just say that the parent that these children were given to is the abusive parent, which is so untrue.
That is so true, because I've been going through this for 18 years, and 18 years ago, my youngest wrote and told the police that she was not there. She did not see or hear me utter a death threat. The police still took me away. But then I got brought back to court. And then I think it was 2009. She put in her applicant's file claim on me, saying that, oh wow, the drama she committed in front of the police to the trial in 2021, she comes up with, from the 2005 statement to the 2009 statement, she comes up that she heard me threaten her father and said that I was going to kill him over and over. So she went from I was not there to wow, all the drama she created to I heard her threaten. So now these are all recorded, written out on statement, and on Zoom trial. So when I was in a Zoom trial after 18 years alienated from my children, they're now adult children, and they are so, they're actually worse than their father, because now they've been conditioned at an
Mhm.
early age with the judge called him a master manipulator, because he had those kids wrapped around his finger only to keep them away from me. So he cried false allegations running out of the house and took the daughter to the mall. This
Mhm.
is what's happening. A lot of women are getting blamed for this, but men are doing it too. So the world is it's a 50-50 world of alienation. And all
Mhm.
these groups that are saying that it's men's only, and it's other groups are saying it's women only. No, it's grandparents that are alienated. Siblings are alienated from each other. They go into foster care and never see each other. Why
That's
can't they
right.
keep them together?
Like,
It's because to silence them so that they're not strong, a bond, unity to help them fight whatever they're dealing with. So they're being
right.
conditioned.
And you're right. It's not gender specific. It's not just men. It's not just women. It's almost 50-50. And also, it's multi generational, which means that what you just mentioned, the alienating parent will teach the children to behave just like they do. And that child will then become an alienator in their relationship when they have children. So it goes on generation to generation. And, it just has such dire consequences for children. It's awful, awful, awful.
It is. I'm dealing with death threats from my children. I'm getting messages to go kill myself like I was intended to. My adult son in the Canadian Navy is sending me like horrifying messages that a young man should never say to his mother. Like he's helping half of the world out there, wherever they call him. He goes to their rescue, but yet do they know inside that he's abusing his mother? Because that's what they do now. And this is
Mhm.
parent abuse. And they
Yeah.
hit their, the judges throw them out after 18, but what do they do after 18? So, they become more deeply hurt inside because they either feel shame, guilty, but they don't know how to get help for it. So this is why I'm reaching out to the alienated adult children, because I was one. I got
Mhm.
help. I found my father after 40 years being alienated from him as well, off and on. Like I got to see him a few times over the 40 years, but that's not a relationship. That's, there was always fear of being hurt
Mhm.
by him each time. But at the end, when I found him on his deathbed,
Other, right?
yeah, when you find your parent on a deathbed after so many years alienated, that's going to hurt you forever. you know.
Mhm.
So these kids need to wake up. They know the truth, especially if they were teenagers. That they were part of the scheme that they were conditioned to
Mhm.
abuse that parent. But to
They
hold
just feel guilty
to,
and ashamed, and they don't want to be exposed
mm,
as the abusers themselves. And so they will go to great lengths to hide it. And that's where the suicidal ideation comes in. They feel so depressed about what's happened in their family and their own guilt, and they end up committing suicide.
that's right, Dr. Lynn. Because who do they go to when they meet someone, they fall in love with someone? Are they going to say, look, I abused my mother, or I abused my father by not wanting anything to do with them, after the girl or the man tells you that they fell in love with you? And how many children do they want? Well, that's where it's going to come into question now. Will you alienate me from my children? So, we need to teach kids this in school and health classes. And when they meet up with an alienated child, they're in for a lot of um, conditioning, a lot of abuse, mental, emotional, psychologically abused, sexually abused. I mean, these alienators are very controlling and powerful. And as they get older, they get worse. And when they have children, they are the best teachers. They're no different than a cult leader, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it just goes on and on and on unless someone stops it. And I am so impressed with the person that I mentioned to you of the Anti-Alienation Project,
Okay.
Madison. He was alienated from her dad for, I think, 20 years. And then she started to see that, he was actually the good parent, and how she'd been alienated by her mom against her dad. And she talks very openly about it, and she interviews a lot of different people. Um, Very interesting, because she's an alienated child, so she can speak out. She also gets a lot of this, what should we call it? Public attacks, social media attacks that we get, that try to, what are they trying to do? Put us out of business? Are they trying to drive us out of the country? Are they trying to kill us? Because I have gotten many, many, many death threats. I've had demonstrations outside my house. People calling me. In fact, Google sends me the number of clicks I've had and negative comments I've had. And I get a congratulations from Google every month because I have so many of them. Like last month, I had 19,000.
Wow.
Month before that, I had 27,000. And the very first week that all this hit the social media that they planned so well, I got 15,000 in 1 week. The other figures I got in 1 month. So that was 15,000 in 1 week hits on the internet.
Wow.
It's just crazy.
That's That's insane. I know I get a lot of spams where someone, well, not just someone, I've been getting a lot of people messaging me in Messenger. I had to shut it off. I don't deal with Messenger very well anymore. That my product sucks and I rip them off, and how dare I use abuse children in my product. And I'll go, what product? I don't have anything, So Meta has been threatening to eliminate me, and I keep having to appeal these. I pay for my programs, and I just found out that I am not on Facebook for my parent alienation page all of a sudden. Yeah, I was denied, and on my other page. So, but we are on YouTube, and at least we're somewhere to raise, we're not
Awareness.
raised awareness anymore, because everybody knows about parent alienation. It's not a hidden secret.
Everybody. I mean, when I went and talked to all the senators in Sacramento, they did not know about it. I had to give them a quick briefing, and then many of them said, oh, yeah, I had that happen to me. I didn't know that was alienation, or my brother or sister, or, my husband, my wife. And the thing that I wanted to mention about this bill was that it went through many different houses and committees, and it was amended in many of these committees, right? A lot of the wording was taken out. And so the bill ended up being pretty acceptable even to me. And for me, it's a very personal issue, because it will prevent me from doing my work. But what happened was that the very last day of the legislature meeting, which was last Friday, they tacked on what was basically their original bill onto the end of the bill. And they did it because initially the bill was written in a family code section, which is the way they do it. Well, they just simply put the bill back in a different section. So the bill is the original bill now. And apparently that's not an illegal thing to do. Apparently, the legislature is sort of like, what's a good word? Kangaroo court, that there's no fairness, there's no...
Anything goes.
Yeah, anything goes. You can make whatever law you want and nothing seems to happen. Like, we do have laws against children being alienated from parents. Like in every single state, we have a penal code,
Right.
which, it basically says that if a parent gets in the way of, the other parent having their custodial time, the police will enforce the children being picked up and taken on the custodial time by the other parent. Never enforced. Never.
Nope. They always say take it to the civil court.
Yeah. And then you go to family court and they basically ignore it. They ignore any contempt of court because the alienators do not care at all about obeying whatever the court says. And one of the things I do when I do reunification is I try to press on the kids, that court orders count. They do have to be obeyed. And here's a court order, and the court order says they're going to stay with this parent for a little while, and then they're going to have both of their parents in their lives. I tried to make it as palatable as possible. But even the children, and I guess it's no surprise, feel like they do not have to obey court orders. And one therapist told me that the alienating parent flat out told the kids, don't worry about, listening to court orders, because the kid said, well, didn't the judge order that? And the parent said, oh, don't worry about that. You don't have to listen to the judge. That's what they're teaching them, which is really sociopathic,
Right. They become very disrespectful. They have no care for authority, even court orders.
Yeah.
Their own parent. There's, doctors, lawyers. They even treat their lawyers like garbage because they know they can get away with it. And if the lawyer doesn't listen to them and get their way, what are they going to do? They'll probably lie about the lawyer too.
Yeah.
So this is like a huge issue on how these kids are being raised after.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, young girls at 8, 7, 6, 5, whatever, being taken away from a mom, not to be raised as a girl. And what's that going to teach her how to be handled by their own partners later on, that, she's only got a father and she's going to be treated like trash because the father discarded the mother? Or the same if it goes to the father being taken away. Is a little boy gonna hate every woman because he was taken from his father? This is something that it's embedded into a child at a very early age to not trust or to become promiscuous, to have addictions, drugs, alcohol, because they're confused. Even on their own gender, they don't know if they're a boy or a girl anymore.
Yeah, we've seen a number of those situations now, more than we've ever seen, gender identity problems, which seem to resolve. Like, I work with this family where the girl was identifying as a boy and dressed like a boy. And we went through the unification. The girl started living with her dad. She started liking it. She didn't want to live with her mom again, although we were working on her developing a relationship with her mom again. And her dad sent me a photograph of her going to prom. And here she is wearing this gorgeous dress, little spaghetti straps, looking more girly than you can ever imagine. So that seems to right itself when things are right in the family.
Right.
This
Yeah.
girl, interestingly enough, talking about false allegations, she was sort of coached by her mother and her sister to accuse her paternal grandfather of sexually abusing her. And when I saw her in therapy, and asked her, what happened, she said that her grandfather looked at her in a certain way, so she knew that he was going to abuse her. And I said, what way was that? And she said, I don't know. I couldn't see because I was facing front ways, but he put his hand on my leg. And that's what, this poor grandfather had been arrested, spent time in jail, very proud man, military. And he had fought it all the way up, through the courts and basically wasn't heard. And when the girl was in here, she did not want to give up the idea that she'd been sexually abused. And so I backed off from that. And I said, okay, well, you think about it, and if you want to talk about it, you know where I am. You can talk to your dad about it. You can talk to your grandparents about it. And 2 years later, she contacted me and told me that she had been lying, but her mom and her sister told her that that's what she should say. And they told her what to say. She was only 9 at that time. And she drove over to her grandfather's house and apologized to him and made a statement to the court to absolve him. But that was she was 17 at that time. So that's 8 years of that poor grandfather who'd never done anything wrong. He had 5 daughters who all said, he never laid a hand on us. He never abused us. They never looked at us in a funny way. And yet this parent, that I'm writing a book with Catherine McWillie right now on false allegations of parents and what happens to them and how to deal with them. And, unfortunately, parents, grandparents, a lot of other people fall victim to these alienators and the children who make these horrible false allegations without any remorse or empathy whatsoever. I've heard about parents being in jail for 9 years, and then when the child is an adult, confesses that that never happened, and then the parent is out of jail, and they've missed 9 years of their life. It's tragic, this
Just
whole
like
problem. And these hate groups who really proliferate it, whatever that word is, stop at nothing. They for me, I know that they know I'm bound by confidentiality, so I can't defend myself in social media. And they say whatever they like, Mary, whatever they like, the worst lies. I'm trafficking children, I'm abusing children. When they come into my office, I don't feed them. I say that I'm going to put them in a wilderness camp and take away their blanket. And the most ridiculous things, how anyone could even believe. I know if anyone knows me, they wouldn't believe it. But, the fact that we are unable to take to the media like they do and defend ourselves and attack back and say these are false allegations.
right.
really just gives them more power to say whatever they want to say. And it's outrageous. I mean,
Well,
that
that
day they were taking apart my face and saying that I had had a facelift and pointing out all the points on my face. And I just thought, oh, they are really scraping the bottom of the barrel if that's what they're doing. You know, what a waste of time. They could be
yeah,
in some child.
yeah, that's so true because I'm going through it with my own children. I got condemned by a judge because my children told him I was a crackhead alcoholic. So I had brought back 1,000 bottles of wine from Europe for the children to have for their wedding. I mean, I started a little early. I don't drink, but I thought it'll age by the time they get married. And I said to the judge, I said, hey, what about the wine? And he goes, oh, like you really need it. And I didn't think at the time, like, what did he mean by it? Right. And then when I saw these complaints about me being a crackhead alcoholic, I'm thinking, oh, wow, I brought back all these bottles for the kids' weddings and special occasions and stuff. I got condemned on something I didn't even drink. So these kids of mine are continuously undermining each other's complaint because one would say, oh, I watched her abuse my brother and sister daily. The boy would say, oh, I only got beaten twice, but the other one's saying, yeah, she didn't abuse me, but I had to listen to all the abuse she was enduring on the other. And I'm going, oh my goodness, like, where was
Mm-hmm.
I in these pictures? Like my kids were treated with so much love, so much respect. I think I may have overcompensated because they were away from their father for 6 to 12 months a year for 18 years. I raised them alone to a soldier as well. And, he suffered severe mental health issues his whole career. So I
Mm-hmm.
basically nursed him as an alienated father. He never got to have a father since he was 1 year old, being told that his dad was a monster and you didn't want to know him. So
Mm-hmm.
this is what he grew up to, as becoming a bully as a child, to a violent offender in high school, to a domestic violent offender at home, and a child abuser. Now that he's alienated my kids, there's a whole row of red flags. And the judge knew that he was a conniving, scheming, manipulative liar. But he got the house and kids only because he brainwashed the kids once I went to prison, on false allegations that never got. I mean, I was shocked that the police actually thought I could say it. I was in a wheelchair, and they took me away and to never see my kids. And now I'm being threatened that I'll never see my grandchildren, my future grandchildren. And if she does have children, she will make sure she tells them I'm an abusive mother. I mean, we need to get these kids to stop saying this. This is something that the courts need to see. Once they know that these kids were alienated, question those allegations that they're throwing out. They need to be
I think
stopped.
courts were seeing it. And I know when I was last on your show, I was pretty enthusiastic and optimistic about the court seeing it. But now I see this Cadence Law just whipping through all the states and being appointed because the legislators think it's going to bring all this money into the states, into their state, when there is no money to bring into their state. They get like $200,000, which is just a drop in
Nothing.
a pound. So I was thinking the judges were becoming more and more educated about alienation and willing to order treatment and, willing to order that the kids see the other parent as well. And that there was no abuse, being willing to say that in court. And now I feel like we're just back in the dark ages, doing that cycle again of these crazy people winning because they've managed to get hold of money and the airways. And I guess even the courts, I don't know. I haven't talked to any of the judges about how they're going to handle all this, but it's very discouraging once again.
Yeah, it was like Dr. Sam Vaknin once said, the um, he read that parents raise your children as narcissists. Well, this is what's happening. Our children are conditioned to be abusive and not to listen to people. And that's so wrong, because when they go to school, even teachers are now sending messages home to parents: your child is extremely narcissistic. Well, you know what? If that's what a teacher says, get those kids out of school and put them into therapy to be unnarcissistic. To teach them right from wrong. Something's happening in the family for children to see it, because domestic violence isn't always just punches, black eyes, broken bones. It's a mental and emotional,
Correct.
psychological
Oh,
trauma.
yeah.
You're hearing a dad or a mom tell the other one, if you don't shut up, I'll kill you, or if you don't do this, I'll kill you. This is something that the kids are going to grow up to,
Yeah.
thinking that, oh, killing is fun. Let's go kill somebody today.
How you treat your spouse. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is how some kids go to school or do school shootings, because they probably heard it over and over by one of the parents. I mean, you don't just learn how to hate. You're taught to hate, because you're born to love. So these kids that are on a vengeance after they get alienated, they seriously need help. So if a school recognizes that, then there should be something to do with reunification therapy. Even if the other parent isn't there, at least the child will know that both, they have the option to get rid of that burden, because there's always a solution to every burden out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the kids,
Hopefully, I mean, this has been going on for a really long time, and every time there's a solution, it gets chopped off.
it does. Yeah, you're right. So what we need to do is just keep on it and making sure that these kids don't fall through the cracks, to keep an eye on them. The court system, once they get rid of you in a divorce, they get rid of everybody and don't care what happens to us. As long as, someone's bringing them back to court, one of
Mhm.
the partners. And then that's when the judge's eyes open, because they see dollar signs. They don't care.
And a lot of people tell me, when they first come across me, they'll say, all my money's gone. And where is it gone? On the lawyers, and going to court. And they have gotten nowhere.
That's right. That's right. And if you go in pro se, they frown upon you, and they call you stupid, and you're unknowledgeable. Next time you come in this courtroom, get a lawyer. I mean, this is how some of these judges see us.
Yeah.
They don't want us to go in there pro se, right? Because we're not making money for them.
Yeah.
And if we all went in as pro se, what are they going to do? This has got to stop. We're
Yeah.
not.
More and more parents are doing that because they can't afford to fight. And I think the bottom line is, a lot of parents just want to give up because they've had it. They just cannot bear doing it anymore. I have one client who's been in the court since 2018, and she had been married to a guy who had alienated his last wife's children against her. And they fought in the court. And finally, when the children were almost aged out, they got a ruling of alienation, and the mother was given all the custody. And so he still pursued his kids, trying to alienate them. And then this client of mine married him, not knowing any of this, and had a daughter by him. And lo and behold, he's alienated the daughter against her. The daughter is now 13, And she finally ran away, which her mom knew she was going to eventually do. You know, she's living with her father, and her mother just said, I'm done. I have been pro se. My whole life has been about pro se in the courts. Since 2018, I have fought tooth and nail for my child and still had her see her father in spite of his background. And she said, and I just give up. I'm just
Yeah,
not going to do it anymore.
I've been there for 18 years. I'm not giving up because I know if I give up, I'll drown my story to help someone out there. Eventually, they're going to listen to us.
You think
Eventually, I
so?
mean, I think what we need to do is start going into the courts and talking to these judges, because with our evidence, they can't turn a blind eye anymore. They're the ones that are should be held accountable for all the damages that they've caused our families. I mean, the judge that alienated me from my children lives 30 minutes from me. And that's very heartening to know that he's so close, and he's got his family, and he got voted to supernumerary judge, which means that he can come and go whenever he wants to, for when they call him for a case like mine, to make all that money under the table. And it's very sad knowing that I'm going straight and narrow all my life, helping people, and yet these people are getting paid to do things illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hurting all of us worldwide.
I think that I couldn't believe that there was all this, horrible criminality really amongst the judges and the lawyers. And I was on a case in Sacramento not so long ago, and the lawyer for the other side had been a former judge who had been fired from the bench because he had been involved with racketeering, and he still called himself Judge so-and-so, and all his stationery was Judge so-and-so. And then I found out that the judge on the case was his good buddy, and he'd almost gotten fired from the bench because he'd given a move away order. And, you can only give it with both parents there. You can't just allow it with one parent there. And so he almost got dismissed from the bench, but he was the presiding judge, and you could tell they had a relationship,
Yeah.
in the courtroom. And
Well, my ex's lawyer literally blurted out that this is going to be an easy divorce because he had dinner with the judge the night before, and they discussed my case, threw his sprained ankle up on the table. As I'm disabled and there was no seats yet. They had to bring seats in for us. So I'm looking at him going, what? And he was just a young fella, very, very cocky at that time, 18 years ago. He was in his first year at law with my lawyer. They were both the same. So the judge's comment at the end was, well, Mr. Haas, you have seniority over Mark Simpson, so your client wins. And then turned around and looked at me and said that I got treated. He goes, sorry, ma'am, you got treated like a man, and dismissed the case where my ex got the kids. And I'm thinking, what kind of, because you had dinner with the lawyer, you don't even give us our rights for anything. And they discussed it the night before, but didn't discuss anything in the courtroom. It just didn't seem right. And he was a criminal judge, not a family law judge. He was brought in on my case and didn't care about my criminal charges that were dropped. He still condemned me as a bad mom, saying that if I beat the charges, he will literally tell the ex-husband that Mary gets everything, is what he wrote on the excerpts. But yet he didn't even question whether the charges were dropped or not. He just asked, was it taken care of? And both counsel said yes, that was it. He went on to about the house. So the house was more important than me. It's more material. It's money that they're worried about. The longer they prolong my criminal case, the more money they're going to make on me. So, I'm finding a lot of these cases we need to reopen and get these parents out there to get a judge held accountable for everything they've gone through.
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who are going to make the difference are the parents. But I have to say, this time around with this bill, getting the parents to support this effort has been virtually impossible. But I think the parents are going to make the difference when they finally organize. I know in some states they are very good at organizing, like Florida and a few other states, but unfortunately not in my state.
Mm. Well, we gotta buckle up and get all the states together to amalgamate onto one bill if we can. I mean, every state is different, but child abuse is child abuse. It doesn't matter what state you're in, which country, which part of the world, which island, it's still child abuse. Well, Dr. Lynn, we're into 55 minutes here on the podcast. And if you want to go on, we can go on, or just give us a few more minutes of your time and give us your last advice to parents out there who are seeking to get their children reunified. I mean, how do we go about it in a simple matter?
Yeah, that's a very big question.
Sorry.
I mean, what I had been working towards, of course, was getting the judges to recognize parental alienation in the courtrooms as a matter of fact, and have reunification therapy with the children and the alienated parent, and work the other parent into the equation after a period of time. And that was working really well. And then this law has been created making all that illegal. So the only thing I can think of is that the parents have to organize and not be afraid, because so many of them are afraid to speak up, put their money out there, put their heads out there, put their heads together, in order to allow people like us to do our work, and reunite the children and the parents. So that's what I'm thinking now. I don't have any answers really.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. But if the judges can see that the kids need help, it might make a big difference for us. So if we educate them, it might it will work in their favor. But Dr. Lynn Steinberg, thank you so much for coming on to Let's Talk on parent alienation and family domestic abuse. Our children need us out there to help educate the world so that eventually, when they do have children, they can open their eyes and see how much love we have for them, so that they knew that their child could be loved just as much as they were loved.
Yeah.
So parents, alienated grandparents, alienated children out there, remember, you are loved. Reach out to your parent before it's too late. You don't want to see them on their deathbed, because that'll hurt you even more. I'm lucky I got to see my father, but it was touch and go every day that we were together. So we made the best of it. But anyone out there that wants to come on to Let's Talk or Real Talk with Andy Martins and I, please reach out. We are only a PM away, and we can get you onto the program, and you could share your story, your knowledge, your experience, and help a family to stop this court abuse. Dr. Lynn, thank you. Viewers, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Goodbye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.